Hi, hello everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, and welcome to the Public Space Academy. This is Luisa Bravo, the founder and director of the Public Space Academy. We are here today for the third keynote lecture of this year, 2026. After a very successful previous 2 years of keynote lectures for the Academy, where we engage the best and most influential scholars, professionals, and urban innovators working on public space from an interdisciplinary perspective. For those of you who are joining today for the first time, I would like to inform you about the Academy. This is a unique educational program, completely free, established by City Space Architecture in partnership with the Ove Arup Foundation and with the generous support of UN Habitat. We are having this keynote lecture every month, which are online in different channels on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. But you can also find additional content, our completely free mini courses on our Learn platform. If you go online on publicspaceacademy.org, you can actually find the opportunity to engage through the Learn platform. Okay, so now I don't want to take too much time with the introduction. I just want to remind you that together with the online engagement, we also organize in-person activities and we organize workshops in Italy, in Europe, and in many other places around the world. The next workshop will be in Amsterdam and Rotterdam at the end of May. If you go on our website, publicspaceacademy.org, on events, you will read about past events and also read about upcoming events of the Academy. Now, I'm very glad to introduce today for our keynote lecture Apostolos Kyriazis, who is associate professor from Abu Dhabi University. His field of expertise is the neighborhood scale, urban regeneration, urban morphologies, public space, informality, and social housing. And his lecture will be on the streets of Abu Dhabi, from spaces to roads. Welcome, Apostolos.
Hello there. Hello, Luisa. Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me.
Okay, so I give you the floor. And for those who are listening, Apostolos will give this lecture for about 40-45 minutes, and then in the end we will have like 15-20 minutes conversation, and we will collect questions from the audience. So during the lecture, after the lecture, you can wherever you are on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube, you can write down your question and we will try to collect all of them and have a conversation also with the audience. Thank you again, Apostolos.
Very, very good. We'll try to do that.
Yes, you can start.
Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm really grateful and thankful for that. It's amazing that we can share content between continents and countries. I would like to thank the City Space Architecture and the Public Space Academy for having me here. And when I received the invitation talking about public spaces, my favorite topic actually, I couldn't help referring to Abu Dhabi again. However, I have the feeling that on this lecture, there will be a circle that will be closing because this is material that I have been gathering, as I will show you, in several collaborations, research collaborations with other universities and colleagues. And although not everything is yet presented, I have already launched another round of research that goes on not to a completely different direction, but to a parallel one that will, of course, produce similar work. So I'm very happy to be able to somehow close this circle today and present it to all of you. Abu Dhabi is a city of stereotypes. It is a city that can be judged really hard when it comes to all those ideas that we have in mind when we see that on movies, when we hear about it. There are some predefined ideas of what it may look like, but it is quite soon that all people that visit Abu Dhabi or live in it are trying to somehow create another image of it, and they are surprised of a lot of powerful contrasts that this city has to present. One of those contrasts have to do with the climate, and Abu Dhabi's climate is extreme. And as I say to my friends, we have two seasons here, only two seasons, summer and a lot of summer. And now the season of a lot of summer is about to begin. And together with it, usually we have sandstorms and a lot of fog, morning fog phenomena, which add their own dimension and to the whole equation of the Abu Dhabi climate and how public spaces are experienced. The presentation that you will see today is, as I said before, the result, the outcome of three major fields of work, of research work done with colleagues and universities, not only in Abu Dhabi and abroad, together, of course, with Abu Dhabi University. But it also includes minor research work that complements the point of view that I'm about to show you about that city. The first work that will be presented, not chronologically, is work that I have done together with my colleagues from Sorbonne University, Cléo Chavanot and Adrien Dubuc, and many others, of course. And together with my colleague in Abu Dhabi University, Nadia Munajed, some work on the verticality of those landscapes, skyscrapers in particular, a work that we have presented in the Venice Biennale in 2021 to be particular. And of course, lastly, a major work that I have been quite privileged to work together with amazing colleagues from the LSE and other universities in Europe, and in which we have examined Abu Dhabi from the street perspective and, of course, the roads infrastructure. I always like giving this kind of small historical brief of Abu Dhabi because there may be people here that do not really know what Abu Dhabi is, how it started, and how it developed through time. Abu Dhabi has been a small village at the tip of on pearl and pearl diving and fishing. So it was a seasonal settlement, not even a permanent one. It became permanent only during the last 100 years. And it started becoming modernized, especially after the first oil concessions in the 1950s. So we can talk about 1960, 1962. And as you can see, the old town, the Arabic town of Abu Dhabi, was having its own organic arrangement, to tribes, to urban elements that were not designed by somebody, but they were chosen and built in an ad hoc condition, using the knowledge of the times, taking advantage of the harsh weather, the very scarce resources, and all the elements of the weather that they could capitalize on in order to survive. This is where exactly the tip of the island was compared to the metropolis that we know today, that all the map is including. But then after the first oil concessions and after Sheikh Zayed took power, we have the first attempt to modernize the island. We have 2 or 3 master plans in very short amount of time in 1962 that attempted to design a new city from scratch, even though the first impression would be that the old town would be kept, would be preserved. Unfortunately, this thing didn't happen. The contemporary Abu Dhabi, the modern Abu Dhabi, was built and designed and built on a tabula rasa, on a very simple grid that resembles maybe Manhattan in New York. Sheikh Zayed was a pragmatist. He wanted the city to grow fast. He was expecting that rapid growth because of the oil concessions. The first 3 master plans of 1962 were then followed by another master plan by Takahashi, a Japanese architect, in 1968 that didn't last long. Takahashi was a student of Arata Isozaki and other brutalist architects of that era in Japan. And he presented a picture that, a master plan that was very much inspired by the work of similar architects of that time in Japan, as you can see. And then, of course, he was replaced in 1968 very fast by Dr. Abdurrahman Makhlouf, who was able to follow the language and maybe the modus vivendi and the modus operandi of that part of the world, and that he was very familiar with, and together with Sheikh Zayed, design the rest of the city. He was able to design this module of a neighborhood that you see, as well as the downtown and most of the public facilities and the master plan that we enjoy in Abu Dhabi today. This master plan, however, this module of neighborhoods was very much inspired by the work of another urban planner in the region, namely Konstantinos Doxiadis. Doxiadis designed a lot of cities in the Gulf and, of course, in many other parts of the world. And especially his Baghdad, Islamabad, and Riyadh cases of master plans were a major inspiration to the work of Abdurrahman Makhlouf in Abu Dhabi. I can just say that Baghdad was designed by Doxiadis and Hassan Fatih, the architect of the poor, contributing that way on how the old condition and the social fabric would not be tampered, and it would be there, remained without any elements and phenomena of displacement to continue on the next master plan phases. The same happened on Islamabad and even better in Riyadh. And Riyadh and Abu Dhabi were designed at the same time in 1968. Those master plans, and especially the Abdurrahman Makhlouf module, neighborhood module that was repeated, gave the look of what we know of Abu Dhabi today. This is the downtown Abu Dhabi, half of the Abu Dhabi island, as we can see, and with a very, very specific feature called the superblocks, as I call them, the watermelon superblocks, because of this amazing and globally unique property of having the exterior of the superblocks, as you can see, and maybe, I don't know if it is pointing out on the map here, the high-rise exterior, mixed-use high-rise, and the low-rise single-use, usually housing interior of those superblocks that is very distinct and special, which occupied the entire island of Abu Dhabi, which is now on the red outline, as you can see. Together with some other political events, it was easy for Abu Dhabi to saturate design-wise and construction-wise this island by the end of the 80s. Following the 80s, a number of other political events in the region have helped Abu Dhabi boom construction-wise again in the 90s, which led to a new master plan by Atkins in 1991, with which we see the birth of the suburbs of Abu Dhabi as we know them today. And of course, we can see that the city has spread from the main island to the mainland over the city. And on this map, this is on the right side, to the right side of the map. Further events led to, of course, to 2004. I have to mention that it's the passing of Sheikh Zayed and his replacement by Sheikh Khalifa, who maximized the strategic targets of Abu Dhabi from a capital of a new country, of a federal country, to a global hub for tertiary services, tourism, education, etc. And this dictated for a new master plan and a new approach in which he created the Urban Planning Council and a massive framework of not only a master plan but guidelines that even today direct us through all the phases and aspects of any urban plan or master plan that we may build in Abu Dhabi. However, this transition raised a lot of questions with regards to the differences between the approach on the master plans. For example, in 1968, the neighborhood modules of Abdurrahman Makhlouf despite the fact that they were based on a very rigid modernist approach on urban planning, were based on a porous social urbanism with a high degree of sensibility with regards to social aspects of the city and how easily and safely from traffic people of different ages would approach all the facilities, the community facilities and the amenities that they would need for their daily lives. And you can see that we have for the first time, perhaps in any Gulf master plan, what we call a 10-minute city. It is a concept that is not a brand new one, but I am afraid I will disappoint a lot of people by saying that this has been quite a modernist plan, to tell you the truth. However, on the 1991 master plan by Atkins, the suburban modules that followed did not follow the same doctrine, whether in terms of scale or in terms of separation of traffic and ease of accessing those facilities. Instead, they opted for maximum zoning and extremely low densities of single land uses, which created massive issues later in the city, and not only in Abu Dhabi, but this was observed in many other cities, especially the new cities of the Gulf. This created, of course, phenomena of horizontal segregation and a car-centric universe. We have for the first time, a shift on how streets from a place, a public space where people meet and gather, even on the parking zones, to another universe on its own, where streets are converted into roads and into networks, pure networks, where they will take you from a point A to a point B, and they would make it as easily as possible. So these are the suburbs, as you can see on the map. what followed, especially after 2004 and the shift of power and the new strategic aspirations, is also a shift in an approach on the design of the city, which led to the all the waterfront developments to emerge, and we have this as an outcome of an effort to capitalize on real estate values and prices. The waterfront was always an attractor of such investments. However, even though there was this shift towards the tertiary economies, and most developments of that time focused on that water and land threshold, we see that those developments were based on the principle of exclusion, because mostly primarily in terms of through the real estate values, prices, and of course also in terms of employability and passport. So we have the rise of the neoliberal city that we know today, not only in terms of the compounds, the developments that are gated communities, but also on in the aspect of vertical growth that is very unusual in this landscape. Abu Dhabi and all these cities in the Gulf are are founded on a very horizontal landscape. So this verticality is something very, very strange and unusual. However, it became quite synonymous with what we experience today. This can be really felt easily in Dubai and many other cities, of course, and Abu Dhabi did not stay back. However, the tower, the skyscraper, is this architectural element that highlights this individuality that the neoliberal city is always here to propose, and is not really considering well the neighboring, the context, the urban context of its site, with a lot of consequences on that. Following that shift from the street to the road, from the house to the road, we have other elements to display. Abu Dhabi is growing against the sea and against the desert. It's not a very densely populated city, and the housing typologies are quite few. And as you can see, it is limited to those three types of apartments, industrial areas, and housing in single villas in single plots. And if you can see, the transport mode is equally poor in terms of the monopoly of the cars and the non-existence of a good variety of public transportation. In fact, only 3.8% is conducted by public buses, and the rest of the public transportation is conducted by private vehicles or even walking. Not everybody can afford a car here. I will skip these metrics, I will not go into that, but I will say that, as you've seen before on the Atkins master plan, eventually the road networks of the suburbs were designed in a way that did not make it easy for people to drive around. On the contrary, they had to overcome several safety features and measures, and of course, deal with the very low densities that we were working with. As a result, those suburbs street networks are quite difficult to handle, with a lot of empty spaces in between, that has led to an over provision and an over management of those spaces, and we see how that affected the public spaces later. So we have this contrast between downtown and between the suburbs of even from the very vertical to the very horizontal, but under the same parameters of privatization and of the fragmentation of public life. So the city now sprawls against two fronts, but the car dependency is still trying to work its way through both fronts, either through bridges or through the desert as it expands. When it comes to the waterfront, a study that I have conducted between Abu Dhabi and Dubai, as you can see here, clear, and how the waterfront developed through the years, clearly shows that even though Dubai did not have its own natural waterfront and it created it technically, artificially, it seems to be in a better condition when it comes to the right to the city and the right to access the waterfront. Whereas Abu Dhabi, even though it had a massive natural network of islands to work with, it is leading in the directly opposite way, and it's excluding accessibility from its citizens, unfortunately. With regards to housing, we have seen similar shifts from a very open, organic Arabic architecture that we have been enjoying, visiting nowadays, wherever there is a saved, preserved part of the Arabic vernacular fabric. And this photo, for example, is from Riyadh in 1949. However, this has been overnight, more or less, changed in the 1940s and 50s to the model of the single house in the single plot. The organic solutions of the beautiful architecture with all those passive strategies that people of that time needed to engage in order to survive was lost almost forever. The first master plan that engaged a single house in a single plot was the Al Malaz master plan in Riyadh. And through that, and because of course of the Aramco imported villa type, it expanded extremely fast into the rest of the Gulf cities in the 50s and in the 60s. It became a symbol of social distinction and social segregation. With regards to the UAE and Abu Dhabi, this was mostly about private housing because public housing followed another way. Sheikh Zayed, that took power in 1963, immediately knew about the most difficult parts of the modernization of the new country. And this was not about architecture or the technical part of it, but it was about its own people. And let's not forget that until then, in most of the population was leading a nomadic lifestyle, and Sheikh Zayed had to convince them to settle down, and he did that by engaging modernist architects of Eastern Europe to construct buildings, houses that would be flexible enough to accommodate all those lifestyle arrangements that Emiratis used to live with. And it was quite a success. This is what we now call the Shabi houses. And there are many studies, beautiful studies by fellow scholars like Yasser al-Shastawi, having studied that thoroughly. However, this has also changed. The public housing program has also shifted from the Shabi housing to the single house, single plot housing that you see at the picture below, and the Western villa type that we have, leading to a very peculiar contrast, again, another contrast when it comes to housing and the neighborhood scale, in which whether we have an absolute similarity of housing types, which creates all those monotonous landscapes, urbanscapes that we experience sometimes, or contrary to that, completely open in terms of styles, approach on architectures. Don't forget that many architects that came here started building the country were expatriates from all over the world, bringing a little bit of their own styles. And that led to that polyphony, on the other hand, of the urbanscape of our suburbs. Together with how we see on the map those points of interest, we start seeing how social segregation came into the equation. We have those um, developments, vacated communities, as I showed you before, concentrated mostly on the waterfront areas. But on the other hand, we have the labor camps concentrated mostly towards the desert, isolated, but still on super high densities, creating this event of this phenomenon of social segregation in the city. The highways followed the same, followed suit, and the suburbs that were designed in 1991 were designed, as you can see, to somehow fit between the highways that were connecting Abu Dhabi to the rest of the cities. And they were designed in a way that most of the public facilities would be positioned within a very short distance from those highways, and I highlight some of them here. It's another contrast between the suburban type morphologies and typologies chosen and the ones chosen in the main island, as you can see, of Abu Dhabi on the left, in which the distribution of those facilities is much more even. On those different studies, we were trying to focus on some case areas that we were examining in much more detail. In one of those cases, we examined 10 areas with different characteristics, of course, and we mapped them in different layers, urban layers, in land uses, in heights, in networking and public spaces. And we were able to calculate several metrics out of it, including densities, and of course using other tools that we can use, just like the DRI, the direct route index, in which we were able to calculate how well designed an urban form is. And of course, we used all those metrics in order to come up with correlations with regards to those areas and connections and associations between, especially the density and the residual space, or even better, when it comes to the direct route index, on how easily you can go from point A to point B on a specific neighborhood, either by car or by walking or by any other mode. We see how density is associated with the success of a specific neighborhood here. On the project, together with the Sorbonne team, we were able to equally map almost the same public spaces and use methodologies related to photography of public spaces, equally mapping those public spaces, but again, trying to map those behavior of people that were visiting those public spaces, formal and informal ones, in different times of the day, different days of the week, different months of the year, depending on the conditions. So we were able to capture much of the activity that was taking place, whether by cars or by pedestrians themselves. Through those maps, we have been able to come up with findings when it comes to the success of the design of the public spaces, the success of the formal or informal activities, and how the urban form participates into those actions and reactions, and even how public space, informal activities on public space are sometimes blamed unsuccessfully, unlawfully for crime or any other conditions that we may see in the city. Because those cultural clashes that we experience in the city every day in terms of behavior, we have been able to notice that have not been as extreme as we would think, and that through time, through interaction, through the openness of the public space and the design of it, and especially through the energy of children, the public spaces, formal and informal, were giving us a sense of mutual respect and democracy and openness, even when it comes to religious constraints. We also see how people of other, let's say, financial levels were not allowed, disallowed to enter some areas, even though it is completely free to do so. And this leads to other phenomena of social segregation as well. We were able to correlate them with urban morphology on SICAC, the pedestrian alleys, or how spaces are divided between mosques and public spaces, or during the day and the night time. We have been able to see how ground floor uses as retail shops are extended into the city, into the open space, the derelict spaces that are not built yet, and they are functioning at an improvised level by the people themselves. We have been able to see and may raise questions on the necessity of informality and its connection to being lawful or not. So we have been able to see if people are behaving because they want to maybe create a property that was not there before, that was not designed properly, or try to react in something that was built wrongly. Uh, s- uh, those two cases are a great example. Even though barbecue is prohibited, as you can see, people not only do that, but there are also facilities by the same authority in order to allow people to do so. Or those ladies that enjoy an afternoon sun, even though the public space was not designed for them, apparently. And this needs to be highlighted, that there is no direct link between informality and criminal activity. It's quite the opposite, actually. It is the absence of these spaces, the absence of vital spaces of life that creates crime, usually, and not the other way around. And people try to run for miles and miles and drive into a city that is spread and is they can drive up to 40 or 50 kilometers per day in order to find their friends and socialize in any way possible on the public space that they could create on their own by improvising. This includes other kinds of social interaction that is connected to the dominating uh, form of transportation, which is the car, as you can see, by canteens, etc., etc., etc. So this is something very, very interesting to see. It might take some time to see that in Abu Dhabi, or you may be able to be lucky enough to see how different expatriate communities meet and greet every afternoon after working hours and gather in such informal areas and play their favorite sports and be able to see each other and exchange news from their own countries. And this takes place right next to all the beautiful architecture that we enjoy in that city, openly or less openly. And it raises issues on how such a neoliberal city, on such built on such strict rules and guidelines, can and be so open at the same time. And of course, the answer is always the people. The answer is always the people that try to take and create the best of the public spaces that they can, and create their own sub communities in them. This is the Bangladeshi square on the left, and I think, as far as I remember, the Somali corner in a square in Musafa on the right. It's a resistance to transience, as Yasser Shestawi says as well. And we can see even other people trying to use the public space, customize it, extend their housing facilities and furniture into that, and interact with other people and cars at the same time. The couches everywhere on Abu Dhabi is a beautiful manifestation of that approach on public space. So just to close that presentation and lead to some questions, I will say that Abu Dhabi is this kind of city that you expect it and you find it to be quite flashy, but it hides a lot of surprises underneath. You expect it to be a very rigid city that has lost, unfortunately, most of the surprise elements it used to have as part of the organic vernacular architecture that it used to have, and this is true. However, it still resists to that change, especially due to the people that live in it. So informality and the public space and the street as a proper public space, not as a road just for the use of cars, is an indicator of urban health through social cohesion. It's an indicator of successful design in terms of sociability. It's an indicator of proper urban planning provisions. And it should be considered in the future for those cities in this part of the world that still function under the same principles, under the same governance systems, and following the same design doctrines in all their neighborhoods. So this is my presentation. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Apostolos, for this great lecture. I have to say, you gave an amazing overview of the city of Abu Dhabi, and also explaining from a planning perspective how public space can be, successful or not, even from the very beginning when thinking about an urban model. I think we already received 2 comments congratulating for your lecture. This one is from Freya Frese from São Paulo, and this other one from
very far away.
Cambridge. Yes, from Cambridge. So I think yes, this topic. Talking about Abu Dhabi and the Emirates. I don't know how many actually know about what you presented in just 40 minutes. But I think it's very interesting because the example of Abu Dhabi can be actually related to any other city, how the idea, the concept of the urban model can actually, at the end of the process, have an influence on the way people live in those urban spaces, urban neighborhoods. And I liked in particular when you refer to over-regulation and over-control on spaces that reduce appropriation, spontaneous activation, and every kind of informal activities. Because I think this is one of the very important aspects that we have to consider in regard of public space, not just in Abu Dhabi, but everywhere, because this happened in a garden that we are managing here, exactly the same. So, and we are in Italy, so these kind of things, the way you think, design, implement the public space could be different from how people understand it, perceive it, live it, and even transform it against the rules.
This is true. Interestingly, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the demographics of of Abu Dhabi and the UAE, only the 13%, 13% of the population is local population, Emiratis. The rest of the 87% is expatriate communities from all over the world. This automatically translates into a variety of how the public space design and the urban form and the social networks interact through the years, especially when it comes to cities that expand too fast. Sometimes, as I like saying, sometimes fast enough not even to understand their own mistakes, and get educated by them, as it happens in a lot of cities around the world. So all that very peculiar condition combined with the extreme weather condition have led to this set of contrasts that we love to enjoy in this series here. And Abu Dhabi is maybe the city in which this has been designed in the most clear of ways, because it was a capital city, because it was a tabula rasa city. It was not able to preserve any part of the old fabric that we enjoy now in Dubai, in Doha, in Manama, in Muscat. No, Abu Dhabi was designed immediately from scratch. And this is an indicator of we can use it as a paradigm for all the other cities in the Gulf, as you said.
Yes, and I think your lecture is also, as I said, explaining very well how public space can be linked to different expertise. I mean, in your case, you talked about morphological development, typological considerations, and planning from a regional perspective. And then in the end, you arrived by taking pictures of people in a park. So these approaches that are scaling, from the very big scale to very, very local, sometimes intimate scale, when you show the ladies, coming together to talk, or I don't know what they were doing, but and and some other people appropriating informally the space, the waterfront. So I think it is very important that we understand public space not as an end activity, that something that we do at the very end because we have to fix, something that went wrong throughout the process. But it is an idea that should be embedded from the very beginning in the planning and strategic development. And in the case of Abu Dhabi is quite clear to me. What do you think?
No, of course, and the fact that all those research projects were done by combining forces with other disciplines is something that we have to stress every single time. We have to be able to look things in different vantage points, from different vantage points and different perspectives. So this way we can be able to approach their own truth the best way we can, and be able to analyze them properly. So it is something that has to happen. And I was privileged enough and lucky enough to be part of those things and study that. So it's the showing the way on how a multidisciplinary approach has to follow and continue on any public space research.
Yes, especially in some contexts where you have such a big potential to do something good. Because there is the intention, there is the ability to do it fast, and also to be recognized in terms of innovation. I think now cities are competing, at the global scale, And so being resilient, being safe, being accessible, so those are, key components that are always very important to be taken into account when, especially when designing a new city from scratch. So maybe in Europe we are mostly working on adapting existing environments, but what you showed actually is a very interesting perspective, because it really shows the difference on working in an existing environment and thinking about a completely new environment. So since you live in Abu Dhabi, I would like to ask you, what is your experience of public space in Abu Dhabi?
Well, this is a tricky question. Again, as I said, the public spaces are divided into those fancy ones and newly designed ones, occasionally having the signature of very famous architects, and public spaces that are, much more elusive around the city, and you occasionally need to search hard to find them and be lucky sometimes to do so. And I definitely prefer the latter. It is a case of where you can see spontaneity, you can see different approaches on how people interact with those public spaces and customize them, perhaps. It is that vitality that you don't enjoy and experience on the beautiful designed public spaces. Of course, the same applies to all categories of people, or at least most of the categories. I'm pretty sure children enjoy both of the cases. I'm pretty sure that some users may enjoy one or the other. There is always the need for new public spaces. There is always the need for more open space, and that will boost other elements of public life, like social relations, or public health, or mental health and physical health at the same time. Those elements are already there, and people keep asking for more, and cities can improve in that direction. However, there are cases in cities that have forgotten how it is to, use those abandoned public spaces that used to be there traditionally, historically, and just go and apply new designs on specific plots with specific allocations, specific uses. That seems to be, can I say the word, a bit directed or curated. I totally prefer another direction in which cities acknowledge the existence of the other spaces, and they work together with citizens in a much more open and free way in order to take advantage of them.
Yes, this is the aspiration that everyone in this field of activities is always, underlining. To find the right way to engage with local communities and to create meaningful places for everyone living in the city. Now, since we still have a few minutes, I'm just now another compliment here for you. But if there is any other question that someone wants to ask and take advantage of Apostolos here, write in the comments, because we still have 5 minutes before we close this lecture. So maybe, Apostolos, you can say where people can buy the book that you showed.
Well, several books. For example, The Vertical Horizontal is only on Kindle and Amazon. It's an ebook about skyscrapers and Abu Dhabi and Dubai in particular, and even touches the issue of architectural photography a little bit. With regards to Abu Dhabi public spaces, it is, of course, also on a book and a Kindle, but it is also found on a printed, version through the publisher in here in bookstores in the UAE. But you can also, get it abroad through the publisher's website. About the LSE research, we have published a big number of research output, and we're very proud about it. The one that I showed on the screen is the main report of the research project, which is available online on the LSE website, and it is open and accessible to everyone, for everyone to download and use. We're still working, of course, on many other publications as we speak. Me personally, I'm working on different publications on books, etc., about other aspects, as I said, of public spaces, and they're emerging with architecture on some specific eras of this development of Abu Dhabi's story. But more or less, this is where you will find most of the info.
Yes, and maybe we can share also on our LinkedIn page, the page related to this lecture, all these links that you are mentioning, so that people can go into more details regarding what you just presented. I want to just say to our audience that the amazing pictures that Apostolos put in his presentation were his own pictures, because you also like to explore the context and explore the life, the presence or the absence of life in urban spaces. And so I think this is also a very nice combination of your research and your observations across the city of Abu Dhabi, that it is also informing your work and expanding understanding of what you search for, I guess.
Indeed, photography is an amazing tool. I enjoy it both in terms of an amateur, lifestyle, or professionally as well. We try to engage in that in Abu Dhabi University in the program of architecture that we run through a special course that I do in architecture photography. It's a tool that engages in any scale and in any condition. So I'm very happy that I'm able to do that and use it not only for my own personal pleasures, but also for the sake of disseminating architectural and urban, research work that we have done together with colleagues, and it's part of the whole exploration and experience of every city that I have visited, not only Abu Dhabi, of course. It's part of the being able to grasp the stories of the city and be able to listen to them and enjoy them and discover and understand them as much as you can.
Yeah, it shows the passion and interest that you have for the work that you do. We have a question right at the very end of the lecture. Okay, here.
I'm interested in whether public spaces in Abu Dhabi primarily support more collective uses or individual activities. How is accessibility ensured, especially through walking in waterfront areas near the sea? This is a great question. Well, most of the public spaces are free and accessible, including the waterfront areas, with the exception, of course, of privately used zones of the waterfront. Waterfront related to housing, private housing, to villas, etc., or public beaches that have a fee to enter. Otherwise, public spaces and waterfronts are accessible and free, most of them in the city. And they're absolutely safe. Abu Dhabi is the safest city in the world for the last several years. And everybody enjoy that, and all categories and genres, and of course of the population. Accessibility is ensured primarily through the openness, whenever that happens, in most of the cases, and in terms of design, when it comes to physical conditions, people of determination, as we call them here, that need that have special needs, all those newly designed public spaces are highly adapted to all these social exceptions and conditions that we have to cater for as architects. And this is a good a good outcome of this overregulation, if you may, that all those rules not only exist, but they apply in all those public spaces there. Now, about the collective or the individual activities, this is a very, very interesting question. And this was one of the main findings that we came up with during this study of the informal and formal public spaces of the city. We noticed that there were a lot of public spaces that were programmed meticulously on every single spot of them. However, the programs were not successfully chosen to reflect the needs of the people. Instead, we were seeing other public spaces, both formal and informal, but especially formal, that did not have a specific program, and they were more open program. They were having spaces that were adaptable to different programs with open areas that were able to adjust and be customized according to the conditions. It is those public spaces that were the most successful. It is those public spaces that are more adaptable to both the collective and the individual uses, and they were able to make sure that all the people were able to enjoy their activities there. And this is something that we were happy to stress to the Abu Dhabi municipality. And we see that on policies reflected that now many public spaces have to include a part that is designed in an open program policy in a aspect or approach, nothing that would keep the space in a very tight condition only for one use in particular, but it would be much more free.
Well, thank you. This was very important, actually. I think we do not have any additional questions, so we can close the lecture here. And thank you again, Apostolos, for this very another compliment here from YouTube. Yes, okay, thank you again, as I was saying. And we hope we will have the chance to engage you in another capacity throughout our activities of the Public Space Academy. And this lecture will be available on YouTube, so those who were not able to attend live can actually rewatch the lecture later and get in touch with us or with Apostolos to know more about public space in Abu Dhabi.
Luisa, it has been an honor. Thank you very, very much for the invitation. Thank you very much for organizing this. Hopefully we'll be able to catch up in person soon through the Academy, through Speedy Space Architecture, and discuss more about our favorite topic.
Yes, another one.
I have to tell you, this is a student of mine.
Well, it's good to have students following your work.
Of course. I'm honored.
Thank you. We really appreciate your work and your achievements because it's always important to showcase the amazing work that researchers, professionals, and urban thinkers are doing around the world in regard of public space.
Indeed.
Okay, so this is goodbye to Apostolos and see you soon. And also we would like to invite our audience to stay tuned for the next keynote lecture that we are organizing. We will be attending the World Urban Forum in Baku, Azerbaijan at the end of May, and we will try to develop meaningful relationships also there. But you will stay informed about our future activities throughout our newsletter. So, subscribe and follow. Thank you.
Thank you.